As part of the Clear-Sighted Career Online Learning Series, we welcome you to this webinar titled Purposeful Career Transitions, Navigating Your Internal Compass. My name is Sharon Kane, and I serve as Director of Professional and Academic Programs in Notre Dame's Alumni Association. We hear and read a lot about this topic of career transitions, and we will most likely all go through multiple career transitions over the course of our career. Some of those we may pursue, others may not be of our choosing. But statistically speaking, we will undergo such a transition. And this webinar is designed to support you in that process by helping you identify and align your values, your skills, and your strengths with your professional pursuits. Because it's with that alignment and that self-understanding that we're able to have higher meaning and purpose and fulfillment in our work. Our productivity goes up, our contributions are greater, and we're happier. But too often we skip through that self-examination or reflection and move right into action. And so we've designed this webinar for you to provide a values-based framework and the encouragement to apply it. I am pleased to introduce our presenter on this topic, Kay McBrearty. Kay graduated from Notre Dame with a marketing degree in 1985 and served for 12 years as a member of the Mendoza College of Business Advisory Council. She worked in corporate America for 20-plus years, leading global change initiatives and experiencing numerous job changes, promotions, relocations, and career transitions of her own. In her corporate career, she successfully hired, mentored, managed, and led global teams and initiatives. Kay transitioned her own career, and more recently, she's devoted her professional energy into supporting individuals through a self-discovery process. This process results in increased self-understanding that feeds into an actionable plan for individuals' careers. Welcome, Kay, and thank you for leading us through your approach to purposeful career transitions.
Thank you, Sharon, for that warm introduction, and thank you for tuning in for a discussion about purposeful career transition. We're going to cover a lot of ground today. So let's get started. We're going to talk about the reality, the stats and facts. We'll talk a little bit about the transition and some numbers. We'll talk about the juggling act and where career fits in with everything that you have on your plate. We'll talk about charting your course, understanding your internal compass, the benefits of that internal compass, and I'll provide you with a checklist for a purposeful career transition. And of course, we'll share resources with you at the end. But before we get into the heart of the presentation, I wanted to share with you how I actually prepared for today's webinar. I binge-watched Clear-Sighted webinars on the Notre Dame alumni website along with TED Talks. I watched as Amy Cuddy struck her power poses and Brene Brown dared greatly and was vulnerable. I watched as Simon Sinek talked about his golden circles and the power of why. And Deepak Chopra talked about beliefs. And what all of those presentations and speakers had in common was they had a clear and concise message, and they had a lot of energy and enthusiasm for their topic. I'm really excited to share with you my observations and my learnings around career transitions today. And my goal for you is to come away with some new idea, maybe a perspective that you hadn't thought about previously or a tool that you hadn't engaged in order to get you through this next career transition. So let's get started. Who is going to tune in to a presentation like this today? Perhaps you're someone who's making an initial career launch into the workforce. You're wanting to pursue your dream job. Maybe you're in the wrong job. You're unengaged in your current work. You're underemployed, meaning that you're either unemployed or you're working part-time and would prefer to work full-time. Perhaps you're re-entering the workforce or you're approaching retirement. Regardless of your situation, you've come to the right webinar. And if not, you may know someone who's in transition, or perhaps you yourself will be in transition at a later date. Now, as the daughter of an accountant, I want to start with the numbers and provide a backdrop, reality check for you. The first statistic I wanted to share with you is 11.7. That's the average number of jobs or positions held by the average baby boomer between the ages of 18 and 48 in the US. And that sounds like a big number, a dozen different jobs or positions. But for the millennials, those who are younger, that number is even higher. 7 is the expected number of career changes someone's going to have across the course of their career. And 68.5% of the employees are unengaged according to Gallup surveys. That means that they're not terribly productive. They may be unhappy with their workplace, with their boss, with their teammates. For a whole variety of reasons, they may be unengaged. 14.5%, I mentioned earlier, underemployed, those individuals who are either not currently working or part-time wanting to go full-time, and 33% of the US workforce is in transition at any given point in time. So when you look at all of these numbers, they really say change is robust. So what are you going to do in the face of this? Just for fun, I took a look at my own statistics and my own story and bumped them up against some of these categories, and I found something interesting. By the age of 39, I had held 15 different jobs. I'd had 9 career changes by the age of 49, 6 moves across different states during 7 years, racked up 1 million air miles traveling the globe, started my own consulting firm, took a break to raise children, and then successfully re-entered the workforce. Now, the reason for me sharing my story and my numbers is merely to say, I get change. I've transitioned a few times. I understand that. And so I think that both my experience, along with my career coaching business, and my passion for helping people find purposeful, meaningful work that's in alignment with who they are, entitle me to share some observations with you today. So let's get started. We've talked a little bit about transition. Now we're going to talk about the career piece. Some of you may be aware of Brian Dyson, former CEO of Coca-Cola, who in the early 90s gave a brief talk, 30 seconds, and it really resonated with me. He said that in life, we're very busy, we're juggling 5 balls at any given point in time. They represent family, friends, faith, health, and career. And very quickly, you will learn that the career ball is made of rubber. It's resilient. It will bounce back. Those other 4, however, are made of glass. They are incredibly fragile. You must take care of those. You must tend to those, or they could be shattered, irrevocably marred, or broken. So I'm very cognizant that we're here today to discuss the career piece, which is the bouncy ball, the resilient piece. So we've talked about transitions, shared the numbers with you. Interesting, in life, I think some people say there's 2 things that are guaranteed, death and taxes. I think given some of those numbers, people could make an argument that transition and change is also pretty eminent, along with the fact that we've talked about the career and the bouncy ball. Up until about 20, we're going to talk about charting your course now, up until about 20, for most people, your life was fairly straightforward. It was like a connect the dot. You may have chosen what high school you went to or influenced that decision, chosen what college you attended, maybe even what major you took or what your first job was out of college. But in general, it was pretty much a connect the dot. After that, you got to chart your own course. You got to build your own boat. You got to figure out which dot went where and how you constructed your boat so that you could set off on your adventures across the sea of opportunities. But very quickly, some of us have learned that the waves may have swelled, the winds of change may have blown, lightning may have struck, sails may not have been appropriately aligned, or perhaps you were one of the 31.5% of folks who life was sunny. You were actually an engaged person with whatever work you were doing. But what about those times that all of us face at some point in our careers where things become tumultuous? The storms are raging. Well, you've actually got options. Some people choose to ride the waves. Others may hope for good winds. Some may adjust their sails. Others try and outlast the storms. Perhaps some jump in the water and swim, hope for someone to rescue them, or you can check your internal compass for direction and alignment. And this is the option that I would recommend highly. So let's talk about this internal compass. Now, just as Christopher Columbus set out on a huge adventure armed with very rudimentary tools, he had his telescope and maybe the stars to help him chart his course, you too in your boat have tools at your disposal. Basically your internal compass. And that's the most critical tool that I think is going to help you on this adventure. So while Christopher Columbus may have looked externally, you have the opportunity to look internally for direction. So let's get to the internal compass. Everyone has their internal compass and it has 4 quadrants just like any other compass, north, south, east, and west. And what you have to do is look at all 4 of those quadrants in totality to chart your own course and to follow your own direction. And what's most important, I'll take you through all 4 of those pieces, but you start with the N, the north, the true north, which are your values and beliefs. Now, there's business research that's been done by Collins and Porras, who wrote a few books, Built to Last and Good to Great. And in their research, they found that there were some companies that went from good companies to great companies. Their return on investment improved, their sales improved, their productivity improved, And they tried to figure out what was it that differentiated the good companies from the great companies. And what they found is that the great companies had values, and everyone was in alignment around those values. They hired based on those values. The business processes were set up that way. People were promoted that way. And so it was very clear the direction of the organization. Now, people may have had issue with the values, but then chances are they wouldn't be working for that organization. So the values are really important. Individually, we all have values, and we need to be in alignment with those as well. Some of you may have seen on the internet an example of a professor who put a clear bowl, a vase, in front of his class, and he filled it with maybe 4 or 5 large rocks. And he said, "Is this full?" And they looked at it and said, "Well, yes, you couldn't fit another rock in there." So he pulls out some gravel, some smaller pebbles and rocks, and he pours those in. He says, "Now is it full?" And they said, "Why, yes, it's full." He pulls out sand and puts the sand in there and says, "Now is it full?" And they said, "Yes, it's full." He pulls out some water, and he pours the water in and asks the same question, and they said yes. And he said, "You're finally right." And the point is, he said to them, those rocks represent your values and your beliefs. If you had put all that other stuff in first and tried to cram those rocks in, you'd have a mess on your hands. So you really need to be cognizant of what those values are and put those in first. Same with us. So the other thing is regarding beliefs. Deepak Chopra has done a lot of research in this area, and he said that what I believe makes me who I am are beliefs. You need a core of beliefs that aren't limiting. Limiting beliefs do not serve us and keep us from being our true self. Once you approach your true core, you attain strength, purpose, and worth. So your beliefs are very important. Values tend not to change. Beliefs may flex over time. You then go down to S, which is the strengths and the skills. And some of you may have heard of Strength Finders. The Gallup organization did a lot of research in this area. And some of you may have had the opportunity to have a performance review along your career, as have I, had several, given several. And I was always fascinated with the process because people would sit down with me and say, "Kay, you do these 4 or 5 things really well." And I'd be all excited about that, and I'd say, "Yes, indeed I do those things well." They say, "But these 2 things you don't do as well. Let's get a development plan. Let's really shore those up. Let's work on those. Let's spend some time on those." And so for the next weeks and months, I would spend time working on and improving 2 areas that I didn't enjoy. I was probably fairly unengaged during that time frame, to be quite honest, but I was spending all this time doing things that weren't in alignment with my strengths. And if you think about your team of people that you're working with, maybe there was somebody else on the team that could have picked up the slack or done a little bit more of that work, or maybe coached me on that particular skill or area while I leveraged my strengths and maybe helped them with using one of my strengths. What they found is that people who really work from their point of strengths and are in alignment with those are more productive, more engaged. And so over time, folks have started to migrate towards really focusing on strengths. So there's a book called Strength Finders 2.0 that gets at this. But if you understand your strengths and your skills and you bring those to the table and you really work with those, you're going to be much more engaged. So that's the S. We then move over to the E, which is everything that excites you, your experience, your expectations, and for some, perhaps your ego. And my favorite story that illustrates the E is another career coach who had coached thousands of people over the course of her career, had one particular client, and at the end of their first meeting, she walked her to the door and said, "I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to be able to help you. Here's your money back," and hands her money back. And the potential client looks at her and says, "What do you mean you can't help me? You've helped thousands of people. What's wrong with me?" And she said, "There's nothing. I'm just not able to help you." And as they're saying their goodbyes, the coach looks at the other woman and says, "Oh, I see you're reading a book. What are you reading?" And the client pulls it out and says, "Oh, I'm reading about gorillas." Next thing you know, this woman is off to the races talking about gorillas. The career coach smiles, reaches over, snatches the money back and says, "Sit down, sister, we're not done yet." And the woman's like, "What do you mean? You can't help me? Now you can help me?" The career coach said, "Hear me out. I think you need to work with gorillas." And the client's like, "Okay, you're off your rocker." She said, "Hear me out. I hear there's a new baby gorilla down at the zoo, and if you go down there and I know this person down there, go call this person, offer to help out as an unpaid intern and see what happens." Well, if you fast forward through the story, the 2 worked together. The client did go and have a career in gorillas. She was not Jane Goodall, but she found her passion and her purpose. And so I'm not suggesting that anybody out there go and work with gorillas, but I'm suggesting that you find out what is your gorilla. What is it that excites you, that lights you up in a way that you can bring that energy and that excitement to what you do every day. And for some people, they may not be able to do that with their career. Maybe they end up doing that with a hobby, but if you can do it with your career, it really is an awesome connection. So we move now over to the W, which is who you are, how you're wired, and why we do what we do. I mentioned Simon Sinek earlier, and he talks about these golden circles, but he talks about the why people do what they do. And from a corporate perspective, you might know what a company does or how they do it, but you may not know the story behind why they do it. I just read an article recently where the two founders, two brothers of the Life is Good t-shirts, they had been raised in a family that had 6 kids, and every night at dinner, even though they may not have had the most ideal circumstances to grow up, that mother asked her children every night, tell me something good about your day. And her optimism was contagious. And those boys developed that business and those t-shirts because of a very simple question that somebody asked. You know, how was your day? What was good? Why? And that's the why they do their business. Why I do what I do. I'm a career coach, so that's the what I do. The how I do it, I coach people either one-on-one or in small groups. And the why I do it is because I really get pleasure out of helping people connect with their true purpose and passion. And that really lights me up. Now, that may not be exciting to anybody out there, but perhaps what you're doing wouldn't excite me either. The point is, figure out what excites you, but then figure out why you do what you do. When you look at all 4 of these pieces in totality, then I think you are well positioned to go forward and chart a really great course for yourself on the career front. Now, here's the secret. It's really not complicated. It's incredibly simple to apply. It leverages your intuition. And the success requires 3 simple acts: doing the work, reflecting on your data, and then taking action. Now, if you want to just go do the work, don't waste your time. If you want to do the work and reflect on the data, sounds good, but still don't waste your time. Unless you're willing to take action and do the work, reflect on it, and take action, then you're talking. Then you're actually going to have some really great results. Unfortunately, though, many people choose to ignore their internal compass. And I was really perplexed by this. I thought, if this tool is so powerful, why would somebody ignore it? And in doing my research, I found that people fell into 2 camps. They either fell into the I'm stuck like a deer in headlights due to fear or a whole host of other reasons, or they want to leap ahead. They think that all of this work and this reflecting on data is being versus doing, and they're very action-oriented, so they want to go do something. But if they do things without the focus, then they're really not going to have a good outcome. So what gets people off course, or why do people get off course? They end up saying, I'm too busy. It might require some time. They are unaware of what the work is that they actually need to do, and so they might need to actually be honest with themselves. This may seem repetitive for some. I already know who I am or what my values are. I don't need to do those exercises again. So it's going to require some energy. It may be uncomfortable to actually look in the mirror and see who you really are. So change may be required. And for some people, they really enjoy complaining about their current state of misery. Oh, I can't stand my job. So if you take that out of the equation, what are they going to have to complain about? They might actually be optimistic. And then there are people who are paralyzed by fear. Maybe it's fear of success, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. They might have to be vulnerable or courageous in order to be successful. And then I mentioned those people that want to leap ahead. They just want to take tactical actions as opposed to really focused and thoughtful actions. So these are things that can help people get off course. And in order to be successful, it is going to take time, honesty, energy, change, optimism, courage, and focused actions. But if you're willing to do that, then you're going to have great success. Then you're going to get benefits from harnessing this internal compass. You're going to get to explore career opportunities that are actually in alignment with who you are, your strengths and your interests. You're going to be able to network with purpose and focus. You're going to be able to design an impactful resume. Craft that crisp elevator pitch that tells your story about who you are and what you have to offer. Prepare for interviews with greater clarity. And bring your authentic self to interviews. So I've seen research that shows that there's 3 reasons why people tend to not succeed in interviews. They tend to be really nervous and tongue-tied. And so I mentioned Amy Cuddy earlier in my comments, and she talks about power poses. So there are ways to overcome the confidence issue. Some people don't prepare, they don't do the homework. And in this day and age with the internet, there's really no excuse for not knowing your company, the people you're interviewing with, their competition. And people don't bring their authentic self to interviews. They don't really reflect who they are with that specific job. I think this internal compass provides a great avenue and way for you to do this. So if you do all this great work, gone from your search process are things like stale thinking. Oh, the degree I chose when I was 18, that's what I have to do. Or the experience that I currently have in my resume, that's what I have to do. The spaghetti method, where you just apply for a lot of jobs, throw things up on the wall and see what is going to stick without real consideration for what fits with who you are. Musical chairs. Everybody else around me seems to be sitting down. The music must have stopped. I have to find a chair and sit down. That's not true. There's plenty of chairs out there that will fit you. You just need to be patient and find the right one. Lane looking. People are always comparing themselves to other people. With social media, that's very easy to do. There's this whole fear of missing out, this FOMO. Keep your eyes in your own lane. Your unique compass will take you in your direction. You don't need to be worried about what other people's compasses are telling them. And the status quo, oh, it's a path of least resistance. I'll just keep on doing what I've been doing. So all of this evaporates from your search process. Now, you want to say, how does this practically fit in with a career search and career transition? So after you've tapped into your internal compass, now you're ready to take purposeful action. And that falls into 3 buckets, the ready, set, go. So let's get ready. First, go public. Tell people, you know, I've been thinking about making a career change, or I'd like to know more about this area. Tell people, and you'll find that they'll start to hold you accountable for those results. Explore your interests. Be a lifelong learner. Look at the TED Talks, look at webinars, read the paper, read magazines, surf on the net, whatever you need to do, but explore your interests. Clarify your direction using your internal compass. So do that work that we talked about earlier. And if you need to, meet with a career coach, someone like myself or other people, or like-minded folks that will help you with this process. Once you're ready, then you can set your direction, a very specific direction. You can update that resume that's going to reflect who you are. You can establish your online brand using social media, websites, whatever's appropriate. Develop your elevator pitch. Be able to tell your story to anybody in a crisp, succinct way, and they understand how your dots all connect. Do your homework. Before you talk to folks, there's no reason why you can't go online and look at their background or their company or their organization, but do your homework before you spend time with people. And then go and make it happen. Leverage your network or the network of people that you're close to. Conduct informational interviews and find out about areas that you maybe hadn't considered, but now you'd like to. Pursue opportunities that are in alignment with who you are. And then find career fulfillment until that next transition, because it will happen. We talked about those numbers early on, and all of us will find ourselves in that storm at some point, or in those waves, in the winds of change, and you need to be prepared. So ready, set, go. Go make it happen. Some of the resources that we've talked about today. Strength Finders 2.0 is a book. The Now What book gives you some assessment tools. It gives you the Rockport Indicator that can help you with who you are. Live the Life You Love by the career coach that I mentioned with the gorilla. You can go to the Notre Dame Alumni Association website. They've got great resources and other webinars that may be really helpful for specific tactical items that you're trying to address. Or you can reach out to someone like myself. There's lots of resources at your disposal, so take advantage of those. The takeaways from today is your career is the bouncy ball. It's resilient. Take care of those other fragile balls because you're juggling those every single day. The career ball, it will bounce back. You and you alone are responsible for navigating your career. So take ownership of it and steer that boat. And your internal compass is a critical tool to help you chart your course to career fulfillment. It's just one key to finding your authentic self. Acknowledge it and use it. So remember, have a ball, navigate your career, follow your unique compass, and once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen.
Thank you, Kay, for sharing your insights and expertise with us on how we navigate career transitions in a purposeful, actionable way. Much appreciated.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So I have a few questions just to build on what you've shared with us before. I'm going to start with, which direction of the compass should we start with and why?
Great question. As I presented the material, I started with north, and I did that very purposefully because I feel that using that analogy with the glass bowl and the big rocks that were put in there, it's really important to start with the values. Your values and beliefs are the most important thing. You start with those, then you travel south to your strengths and your skills, then east to everything that excites you, your passions and interests, and then the W, how you're wired, why you do what you do, and who you are. And I think if you do it in that order, that is the most impactful and the most helpful for people to really get the best value from the exercises.
It makes sense as you've outlined it, and yet we know that that reflection, that looking inward and self-discovery, we kind of want to skip over as human beings, go right to the action, as you notice. That we do, I think, as a culture, have a bias towards action.
Yes.
But you're recommending, and based on your experience, start with the values.
The values, and be reflective. And many people will say, oh, I know what my values are. Well, great, put them down on paper.
Exactly.
And then move to the next quadrant if you really have been reflective and understand that.
Great. So for those who might be feeling overwhelmed or confused, what is the very first step that someone already in a career transition or thinking they will soon, what should they do first?
Take a breath, breathe, be reflective, and then take baby steps. Some people want to move very quickly, and other people are only comfortable moving in small increments. Regardless of what speed you want to go, that's your own personal choice. But start with something small. I mentioned in that ready phase to start by telling people. And maybe before you tell people, you want to be reflective so you know what you want to tell people. But if you start to let the word out with your inner circle of people, they will support you. They will help you through this transition. And then start exploring and investigating on the internet. There's a lot that you can do on your own time that can help you move closer to, okay, I'm ready for a bigger step, and I'm ready for a faster pace. But move at your own pace, but take baby steps and take action. That's the most important thing. Be reflective and then take action. Maybe you need to be reflective again, take more action.
It might be iterative.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's not one, it's not a clear connect the dot. Now you're charting your own course. Try a dot over here, see how it works. Doesn't work, make a new dot. Try something else.
Great. So I'm wondering if you can share with us how you've seen this work in your own practice and work.
Sure. It's been really exciting. I have seen this process work with 20-somethings and with 50-somethings and everything in between. And I've seen them have light bulb moments as they go around different portions of the compass. And everybody has a different light bulb moment. And there have been people who have gone through this process and said, oh my gosh, I really want to go pursue something totally different than what I was originally thinking. And I've also seen it work where people say, you know what? I'm on a good path. I'm going to double down and I'm really going to do well with this path. So everybody's story is unique, but I've seen it work. And that's what I think is so impressive about this particular model, is just that it really is applicable regardless of what stage, what age, the compass works.
You've seen it working in universal ways.
Absolutely, for
Right.
sure.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Kay, for your thoughtful answers.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this Clear-Sighted Career online learning series webinar on purposeful career transitions. I want to take this opportunity to highlight two key resources that are available to our alumni over the course of your career and for professional development. First, please go to my.nd.edu/career for information about various career resources, programs, services, and tools. Second, I invite our alumni to contact our career advisor at career@alumni.nd.edu to seek out services and support as you explore your career options. Thank you.